City Council for April 9th, 2020. Clerk?
All 12 are present.
Very good. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And by unanimous consent, I'm going to switch the order here and bring the invocation up just behind the Pledge of Allegiance. Got a little thing out of order here. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And by way of an invocation, I would just ask all alders and all members of the community to keep in mind those who are dealing with COVID-19 in our community and around the state of Wisconsin. There's one individual in the Green Bay Police Department who has been diagnosed with coronavirus, as many of you probably know. So I want to keep this person in particular in our prayers tonight. Also just wanted to pray for guidance and wisdom and tolerance in these difficult times ahead. We are moving towards a peak of cases here in the state of Wisconsin within the next week or two or so, and it's going to be a really important time for us all to be pulling in the same direction. So praying for that this evening. Now we are on to report by the mayor. I have the camera right here. So I wanted to, of course, touch on these elections, which just occurred on Tuesday. Was talking to a local businessman, and he offered some advice about how he analyzes things after the fact. And so it's a pretty simple way of doing it, but what happened, why did it happen, and what can we do differently in the future? So I'm going to run through that analysis for you, and then get on to the rest of the meeting. So what happened? So we were forced to administer an election in the midst of a pandemic, something obviously none of us has ever really imagined happening. The experience was an abysmal one for voters and a very challenging experience for all poll workers. And I again want to apologize to and thank each and every person who participated or assisted with the election on Tuesday. Why did it happen? To provide some background, the biggest logistical challenge we encountered as a city was the dramatic decline in polling locations also dropped out, but that was not the controlling factor. Nearly 95% of our poll workers became unavailable in the days before the election and forced us to dramatically alter our plans for Tuesday. So once we hit what we thought was rock bottom in the neighborhood of, I believe it was 38 poll workers, I reached out to Superintendent Langenfeld to see if we'd be able to access all 4 of our high school gyms in the city, and they graciously agreed to that request. Unfortunately, the number of available poll workers continued to decline, which necessitated the final consolidation of polling locations down to the ultimate 2 that we had at East and West. So that probably prompts the question, why didn't the city recruit younger volunteers and possibly city workers into the process? And from my perspective, I was never willing to press city employees into service in harm's way, potentially infecting them and endangering them. And I was unwilling to actively recruit citizens into this process either. People will get sick and some may die because of Tuesday's in-person election. And I was unwilling to play a part in implicating additional people into this public health disaster. And I want everyone to know that I take full ownership of that decision. On the question of National Guard involvement, there are 2 overarching reasons why we didn't ask for more assistance, in my mind anyway. There was training and there was timing. So as our city's election administrator, Clerk Teske did not believe the training provided was adequate. The equally important factor, however, was timing. We received a call from the county clerk late last week and a more detailed message from Representative Dave Steffen on Sunday night informing us of the National Guard's availability. Both messages were received after we'd made the decision of consolidating down to 2 polling locations, We contemplated their use to assist us with the enforcement of social distancing guidelines, which I think had been done in a number of other municipalities. But as you know, our police officers had been asked to provide this service and did so on Election Day. So moving forward, what can we do differently? Of course, I've been mulling over and second guessing every decision that we made leading up to Tuesday's election. There's plenty that can be learned from the experience and used in the future to lead up to our elections in August and in November. For example, as an organization, we must figure out how to provide the assistance that will be necessary to handle a large number of absentee ballots this fall. The clerk's office is not staffed at a sufficient level for this purpose and can't be expected to handle workload without help from others who will have to be trained and certified to perform this work. In addition, I'm hoping we'll be able to have a much better understanding of how many members of the Guard will be available to us and for what purpose they can be put to use in the event we need external help in the fall. I also believe you, as members of council, and I should advocate for policy changes at the state level that allow for appropriate accommodations for our voting process if the coronavirus remains a threat to our community in August and in November. So in the weeks ahead, Clerk Teske and I will provide a full and transparent debrief on the election for members of council. And I invite you all to start thinking seriously about what we can do best to administer elections in August and in November. Finally, I want to reiterate how terribly I feel about the experience of voters on Tuesday. It was painful to watch, and I'm sure more painful to experience, and I wish it had never happened as it did. So I take full responsibility for the decisions I made. In the days ahead, this community will be stressed in ways we never imagined. We lit the city bridges again tonight to honor the Blue Army of medical workers who are combating COVID-19 as we speak. Their jobs will only become more difficult as we move toward a peak in cases in Northeast Wisconsin in the coming weeks. So now more than ever, we need to be focused on the monster at our door, COVID-19. Regardless of the position you hold or your political leanings, this is the common enemy. So let's keep that in mind tonight and the weeks ahead and do everything we can collectively to slow and stop the spread of the virus that represents a direct threat to the health and to the life of community members. That is. And now we're on to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes, Alder
Weary. I'm wondering what happened to the announcements. It's normally at this point. I don't think I've ever seen announcements not part of an agenda.
Sure, I appreciate the question, Alder. Our last special council meeting would have been the last time you saw that on an agenda with the absence of the announcements. So with a special committee or a special meeting of the council rather, not all items are necessarily included. This is in keeping with the way that we, the way that we noticed the previous council meeting.
I think this should always be in there. It really does rob the chance for alders to announce things. And I think it should always be part of every single agenda of the Common Council, no matter if it's a special one or a regular one.
Okay. Appreciate that, Alder. Approval of the agenda. There was a motion by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder, I can see him. Yeah.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Dorff. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are on to committee of the whole. And I'm just gonna, since we have a fairly limited agenda here, I'm just gonna take them one by one here. So we have consideration with possible action on the Bellevue Interim Fire Chief Services Agreement. And I'm gonna go right to Chief Litton for a description. Go ahead, Chief.
Good evening, everybody. I think that you've got a copy of the proposed interim fire chief services agreement with the village of Bellevue. I know that there's probably going to be any questions. While I can outline what's in the agreement, certainly do not want to get into a public question and answer session on things that could potentially come up during this discussion. So I will just do what's in that agreement right now, and then I'd ask Mayor if you would go to executive session for questioning. So we were approached, so the fire chief of Bellevue has resigned his position in Bellevue and took a position of a lower rank with the city of De Pere. We have known that that was potentially going to happen for several months. An administrator for Bellevue reached out to us 6 weeks ago to see if there would be a potential for us offering and or performing interim fire chief services for the village. I discussed that issue with the mayor, was given the word and speak with them. And so over that time frame, we have been working behind the scenes to gather what they need, what they needed, what they're going to need to determine if we could actually accommodate them. As a staff, we did feel that we can accommodate them without taking away anything that we're doing here in the city, of course. This is just a situation of providing interim fire chiefs. The agreement is for a period of 90 days. It can be extended by mutual consent if you approve it tonight. There's a fee of $3,000 attached to that. That number was determined by using the formula that is currently in the Alloway agreement for our services there. It's a percentage of what could potentially be a full-on contract. So that's basically, we use that number, and that's how we arrived at the $3,000 per month figure. We will provide oversight as we do here in the city, just the same as you kind of perform all the same duty. Those will be shared duties between myself. There is one caveat that we will have our battalion chief, one of our battalion chiefs, on structure fires and emergencies of a greater nature. Just as they're dispatched here in the city, they'll be running down to Bellevue to provide oversight and a safety measure to their personnel in Bellevue during this time. That won't take away from anything that we're doing here in the city. The three chiefs here, myself and the two assistant chiefs, we were available in the middle of the night, all those things, we are notified. So with that, that's basically the core of what's in the agreement. We'll be providing some oversight on their training for them. We'll be providing some oversight on their inspection program, which much like ours has been put into hold status because of the coronavirus issue. But that's really the nuts and bolts. And again, before we get into any questioning, I would request that we go into executive session if it heads down the road.
Entertain a motion.
I'll so move to go into closed session. I'll read the language when I get a second.
Second.
I keep forgetting.
I got second.
I got thirds.
Would you like me to read the language?
Yeah, go ahead, Alder.
Okay. The council may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.851E Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The council may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.852 Wisconsin statutes to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
Very good. So Alder Dorff, you made the motion and Galvin seconded. Is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we need a roll call
Okay.
on this vote. So use the board. Use Civic Clerk, please.
Okay, Mayor, so we just have to, if you just give us 1 second to display the vote.
Very good.
Is it this one? This one right here like this? Give us a few more seconds. Okay, just bear with us a couple of more minutes. Who? Alders Corpus Dax and Wary, please vote. I know, yeah, I know that. Yep, they can still hear me. And 468-6191, who are you?
Kathy LaFave.
Thank you. I'm sorry. The vote was 11-1 to go into closed session. Okay, so, okay, all right.
So you just want to move some folks to the waiting rooms,
Yes, so thank you, Mayor.
Celestine, and then
Yes, so what I'm going to do is, if I do not recognize who you are, I'm going to move you to the waiting room. Those of you who are in the waiting room, you will not be able to hear the deliberations because we're in closed session. So Mayor, if you would just give me a few minutes to do that.
So we're waiting on the waiting room? Heavy. Get it? Wait, heavy.
Alder Dorf, I have Edward Dorf here.
Well, he's downstairs.
Okay,
There,
all right,
near me.
thank you. I'll
I
put him in
can't
the
see
waiting
him.
room. Thank you. Okay. And let me just double check.
Who's Dandy and Patrick Buckley?
Dandy is Dan Ditchite, and Patrick Buckley, I thought I put him in the
Patrick
waiting room.
Buckley.
Is Patrick
That's
Buckley.
who I thought he was. He just was
Yes,
still
Dandy
there.
is Dan Ditchite.
I like Dandy better, so I'll call him that from now on. That's great.
All right, that is it. Oh, that's-
Would you like a motion? Are we back?
no, I think Celestine, yeah, Ms. Jeffries needs to
Yes.
move everybody from the waiting room back into the meeting,
I
and
sure
then we'll have the vote.
Okay,
And to move to go into open?
Yes.
Okay.
okay, everyone is back in.
I move to go back into open session.
Second.
Alder Dorf, seconded by. I'll go back into open session. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it, and we are back in open session.
I move that we approve the agreement as presented in closed session.
Second.
Second.
All right, Alder Dorf moves approval of the agreement, seconded by Alder Scannell. Any further discussion on the management agreement? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And the ayes have it. On to item 2, resolution suspending in-person voting in accordance with Executive Order Number 74.
So moved.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second,
Second.
Motion to receive and place on file made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder LaFave. Here, if there are some points to be made about the election, alders can feel free to chime in. And just give me a second to pull up the speakers list. We've got Alder Brunette,
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What is the purpose of even receiving and placing this on file?
Yeah, so it's of law. So the resolution itself is moot as a result of the state Supreme Court's action to overturn Governor Evers' executive order. But we are required to bring it to council and
Okay, you said we could ask questions about the election, Mayor?
yeah, as I think expressed to you prior to the meeting, Clerk Teske is not here. You know, she's still working to administer the election because it's really not finished until April 13th, which is now the deadline for reporting. So any very detailed questions about administration, you know, I would want to consult with her and have her provide those answers. But if there are points that alders want to make, this would be the time.
What is the date that you would, I recommended that an agenda item be placed, and I'm glad that you're taking questions now, and I thank you for that. But what is the date that your full report on the election with Clerk Teske will be provided to the city?
Yeah, so I discussed this with Clerk Teske and asked that she be prepared to provide some of that detailed information for our next full council meeting.
April 17th.
Yes.
Okay, I see there are plenty of people from the public who are in this Zoom meeting. Curious if I could make a motion. Would you allow a motion to hear from interested parties if that's possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's always your right.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone would want to discuss their experience voting, but I would make a motion to hear from interested parties.
Here, could after we vote, I'd like to say something about that.
Sure.
Second, Johnson.
All right. Motion was made by Alder Brunette, seconded by Alder Johnson. And so over, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The floor will be open after Alder Galvin's comments here.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're going to be hearing from maybe quite a few people, and I understand they certainly have a right to be heard. They definitely have some emotion and feeling about what occurred on Tuesday. But I'd like to limit the comments to, I think it's 3 minutes we can limit it to.
Correct.
And then we have to move on because if everyone I've seen on social media gets out here and starts talking, we're going to be here till next.
All right. Thanks, Alder. That's a well-made point. I will try to keep time here. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak?
You can unmute yourself.
And then if anyone does want to speak, just state your full name and your address for us. Anyone out there who'd like to say something?
Okay, I see Elliot Christensen, is that correct? But I cannot hear you.
Yeah, I'm not getting any audio either.
Nope. Mr. Christensen, you are not on audio. You are unmuted. You are unmuted. I cannot hear you.
Okay.
There we go.
Yep. Okay. So I guess I really just want to.
I'm sorry, you need to state your name and address for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry, you just did, but yeah.
Not your address, though.
Elliot Christensen, like it's printed on the screen. Address is 1988 Mulberry Lane, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Beautiful, snowy Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'll start my sentence. As I guess I would like to have a clear explanation. I can wait till the 17th, but I owed an explanation as to why the public was not informed ahead of time about the lack of volunteers, about the opportunity for them to step in and volunteer. The media is begging for opportunities to talk about, oh, there's no excuse for not just tell them, just say, hey, we lost quarters of our volunteers. We lost all of our volunteers. Mention it to them. Nothing was said. There's zero transparency in this administration, zero. And it's extremely frustrating. And I understand that we're in tough times, and it's tough for literally everybody. So cry me a river that the taxpayers should feel sorry for the city employees of Green Bay, that the employees shouldn't step up. Fine. Allow the volunteers of Green Bay the opportunity to step up, because we would. And I would be willing to bet, if I just poll the audience, that the people on this call would have all stepped up if given the opportunity, if asked. That, to my understanding, did not happen. And in fact, people were turned away. And I would like explanation as to why I am not given the choice as an American as to why I cannot volunteer, but other people. I'd also like to see a clear explanation as to why Green Bay's rules for polling locations are so much more complex than every other municipality in the state of Wisconsin. Why are Green Bay's more complex? Why is it so hard? Maybe we need to fix that. I don't understand why trained National Guard members who had several days of training. I know this because I had students who were in my class who had to come to me and say, hey, I'm going to be out of class for the week. You make sure to give me extra time, provide me extra recordings. I had to do extra work. So extra work for you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Christensen, your time has expired.
Okay. So, well, I'm going to have some more for you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks for your comments. Any other members of the public?
Okay, Mr. Moore would like to talk. Hold on one second. All right, Mr. Moore, you are unmuted. Please give your address.
Thank you. Joe Moore, 1009 Day Street, Green Bay. I've obviously been pretty critical online and on social media. My family was one of those that spent over 3 hours in line at East High. I don't really want to get into why all this went down. And I think I'd like to see some kind of a plan of action on what we're going to do in the future. So instead of putting all of our eggs in one basket, to rely on postponement or what's currently being discussed with mailings for August and November, that we have other plans in place. I think we relied way too much that this was going to be canceled or postponed. And there really wasn't a good plan in place after that. When the data showed there'd be 30,000 voters and we had 14,000 plus absentee ballots, and everybody knew we were going to try to funnel 15 or 16,000 people through two locations. And we should have obviously seen that wasn't going to work. So look, my wife and I, we both volunteered to be poll workers in the next two elections. I hope more people will do it. And I hope that you will, look, there's a lot of political infighting. I say it a lot, the Republicans and the Democrats are so worried about each other that they're leaving the citizens in the dust. And I don't want to see that at the local level. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Moore. Any other comments?
Anybody else?
All right. Seeing no other members of the public.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf to close the floor. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. You guys have it. We are back to regular order here. I believe Alder Stoyer is in the queue here. Alder Stoyer.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Well, briefly, I've been in touch with you, with your office. I've also had a chance to talk to Chris Teskey, quite a few citizens, any number of folks. And I'm thinking moving forward, it's going to be important to get some transparency with what happened on this election. It was unique in many, many ways, so we can't get around that. But, for me, I think the big thing is that, with the facts that were out there, there's 52,230 registered voters, 14,376 absentee ballots were sent through the clerk's office. And according to Chris Teskey, she said that if they had 2 more days, they could have gotten those other 3,000 out. It didn't. So I guess the big thing is a lot of the citizens are looking for responsibility and accountability here. They don't want finger pointing. I would appreciate if people could put down their partisan flags and just look at the logistics of this election and what happened. It happened. So we can't go back. But I think it's important moving forward we don't make these same mistakes and that we really look at it statistically and see how we can do better. So I have other comments as well, but that's the initial. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Dorf.
Thank you, Mayor. I do like what I see someone was ahead of me on the book.
Oh.
I can talk. I like the comments that Alder Stoyer made. Definitely looking at responsibility and not focusing on blame, looking at how things can be changed and be better in the future is what I believe we should do. And I'll be putting in a communication to that effect later on under petitions and communications. So it was not a good day. I'm sad that anyone who wanted to vote didn't get a chance to vote, and we will do better. I know that we're capable of doing better. We may have to put more money into the clerk's office. We may have to, vote for more money to go into the election process and hire more staff to make sure that it gets done well. I also would ask that people, before they rush to judgment, wait to hear the report. I think that they will find some things that will be very interesting to them as explanations and not as excuses. I think there are some good explanations out there as to why things happened the way they did. And that will be coming up in a few weeks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Alder. I think Alder Weary is up next here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have a few things to say. I just really wanted to thank the clerk staff, first of all, for all their hard work, especially with those thousands of absentee ballots. Major kudos to them, just to start off with. And then the hero poll workers who worked 16, 18-hour days, really not getting up very much. They barely took a bite to eat and went to the bathroom. They were super dedicated. Very awesome, incredible job. And then thank the dedicated patient citizens who came out to vote. It was incredible to watch them wait 3-4 hours to exercise the right to vote. And they made it known to you. Believe me, I heard it and I saw it. They were proud to do that. They were not going to miss it no matter what. I had a lot of people call me who were really quite upset this would be the first vote they'd miss in 40, 50 years. And some of them were near tears. That was very sad. I was at East High. Thank you for letting me volunteer there. I wasn't a poll worker, but I helped them as much as I could, and I saw firsthand the debacle that went on. I wonder how the rest of Brown County, even the rest of the state, really seemed normal. If you take out Milwaukee, places like Appleton had 15 polling locations, and things seemed like a normal election. It just really was kind of disgraceful for our city. I think we all agree on that. As an older person, we are each responsible for thousands of people in our district. We're their voice. And after this past election, I think we've all heard from them. That voice is one of anger. It's one of frustration. All of those. I think we've all heard it over and over by email, social media, phone calls, in person, being inundated with this. And I know for me to ignore that voice means I'm not only ignoring them, but I'm probably flipping them the finger. And I'm not going to do that. So they want answers. Triple exclamation point. They want answers. So yeah, we need to look for it because we sure as hell can't have this happen again, right? But we also need to look back because in the name of accountability, we are fully required to look back at what happened. I'm glad you apologize, Mr. Mayor. I apologize too to all the citizens on behalf of the city. This should never happen. Never should have happened. No matter what happens at the state level, blame whoever you want. Don't care. No matter what happens there, we run our local election. We do. So whatever happens, really, we take blame for that. We had weeks to prepare, and I think we dropped the ball. People didn't get their absentee ballots. People didn't vote. People are afraid to vote. You name it. There's more. I'm going to ask the city council to endorse a request to have the State Elections Commission investigate this past election. They're an independent body. This is what they do. They will review and provide us information to evaluate and take corrective action regarding our shortcomings and to assist in creating an action plan to avoid future failures. I think that it would be good to have someone else look at it. If we're reviewing ourselves, we might miss something we didn't even think of. So I think it's important to have the people who are in charge of it at the state level take a look at it. Thanks.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Much like Alder Weary alluded to, a huge thank you, obviously, to the staff who worked tirelessly, poll workers, and the people who showed up to vote. Clearly, that was a really important part of our democracy. And there were, in spite of the fact that we did lose significant numbers, there were some people who really stepped up to help fulfill that very significant need. I was going to submit a communication at the end of the meeting, which I think I'm going to forego now, recognizing you do, Mayor, that you do intend to do some type of presentation at the next council meeting. So appreciate that. One of the things that I would ask that you include as part of that presentation, which will then, prompts me to not submit this communication, is just an outline and a timeline of events, decisions, modifications, not only to the April 7th election day, but as well as to the in-person absentee voting and the absentee voting process. I do want to make sure that we're looking at this holistically because it wasn't just the delays that occurred on April 7th. It's really all of those things. And I think it's important that we are assessing the challenges that arose from this. I do think it's important that that retribution is not our course of action here that will get us nowhere. But I do think it's incumbent upon City Council to obviously ask questions and get answers to some of these very important questions so that when we start to formulate a plan of action moving forward, that these are mistakes that we don't make in the future. And then I would just also, I really do think it's important that we separate the state politics from the local side of this. It really is the state's authority to determine whether or not the election occurs. It's our responsibility to ensure that we are administering that election successfully at a local level. And so I make that statement because I think it's a really important one because much like all of you, I've seen a lot of the chatter on social media and there is a lot of blaming and a lot of finger pointing. And at the end of the day, the execution of our local elections falls exclusively with us. And so that is the side of things that I would personally really like to see focused on when that presentation comes before council. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Lefebvre.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to bring up, there's another issue that I think maybe some of you are not aware. I had people call me, and I heard from others, that they went on, requested their absentee ballot through the Wisconsin, I believe it's myvote.gov, and they didn't receive it. They did it like 3 weeks before the election. So they went back to check the where their absentee ballot was, and it showed that they did not even request it. So I think our problem is also that a lot of people did not receive it, not just because of the overload at our city clerk's office, is also the website. And I think that the city, the council should do a resolution, send it to the Wisconsin Election Commission, asking that they check out this site and see if they can find out if there is a problem, what's going on their site. This is real important also. I had several people telling me that they had trouble with myvote.gov.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Scannell.
Thanks, Your Honor. I'm also going to put in the communication for a resolution to the state legislature that we have a mail-in ballot elections. I completely disagree. This election was awful. This election was terrible from every angle you look at it. Even any village or city you want to pick where it went smoother. Every person was at risk for being infected with COVID-19. There is no doubt some people were infected. There is no doubt that they are spreading that disease and that some people are going to die. That's ridiculous. That's insane. There is no reason why we should not have a complete mail-in ballot. It's been said that we're responsible, that we are in control of our election. No, we're not. If we were in control, we would have done a mail-in ballot. We would have taken people's safety in concern and our workers. We don't know yet the effects of this election. Whether they went smooth at a polling place or not doesn't mean that they didn't get infected. We're going to see that down the road. And I'm hoping that our next couple of elections, we do not have to put anyone in harm's way. That's just, I don't understand why we're doing that when we don't have to. That's just insane. So I'm hoping everyone agrees that can get behind this resolution that the safest and fairest way for our upcoming elections is to have a mail-in ballot, and they will support the legislature, urge the legislature to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Burnett.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to beat my chest and try to score political points. We all know that the election was a disaster. I do want to separate the politics from the governance. The governance side is what we are responsible for as city. The constitutional right and the expectation that folks have an opportunity to vote. Quite frankly, the city failed. I do give the mayor some leeway in that you did say that you would have a full report on the 17th of April, and I don't question that you're good, true to your word that will have. I will save a majority of my questions at that time, but I will say that over the last 2 days, I have fielded calls, texts, Facebook posts, you name it, and it seemed to me that one experience got worse one after the other. And I couldn't believe the things that people were doing and going through at the polling site. And we need to prevent that. And people are calling for pretty harsh retribution, resignations and impeachment, and all kinds of things like that at this point I don't feel comfortable doing. I've never been comfortable with that sort of politics. I think anyone who is responsible for shortcomings needs to take responsibility for it. But I also think at this day and age, and I say this, and I might get criticized by some, but when people are waiting at the polls and going through those experiences and sitting in a wheelchair for 4 hours and being cold and all those things that we're going to discuss further on the 17th, I do also think that we have to fully hear them and understand them, acknowledge what they went through. And it's very heartwarming for me as an American when you see so many people who take their duty as citizens in this country, that they'd be willing to go through that and risk exposure to a virus in order to exercise their right to elect their leaders, including everyone who is on this call right now. That is a very proud moment for me as an American. And the city can never do this again. We can never stand in the way of someone exercising their rights as an American citizen. So we will look forward to that report on the 17th. If it doesn't meet what I would expect from the mayor and the city clerk at this point, then I'll question it pretty harshly at that time. Furthermore, I do think that during the time where we're all going through this virus and experiencing hardships and scary moments and teaching kids from home and losing jobs and all those things, we also have to be united as Americans and show a little bit of charity towards each other as well. That doesn't excuse what the city did. If the 17th the report comes and I'm not happy, I'll be first to admit that action needs to be taken to get through this as a community. And I'm being redundant and repeating. It's just because I'm worked up because I have received so many calls from so many people, and we can never do this again. So thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Galvin.
Thank you, Your Honor. And if you want, I can send you an email with this request. I don't think I need to. But what I'm asking for is, as part of that, and maybe before we get the report, if all of us could get a detailed summary of what the process is for absentee voting. Basically, if you get it from the clerk or if you get it from the state, who actually produces that ballot, who goes over it, if the clerk's doing it, how long does it take, and then who sends it out to the voter. And then the process, once they receive it back, to process that vote. Along with that, I'd like a detailed description of the process of what it takes to train a poll worker, time, documentation that they need, things like that, descriptions. And then what are their duties? How many people do we need to do everything at a polling center? So that when we do get your report, if I have that information, it'll help me understand a little bit better some of the explanations, I think, going forward.
Thanks, Alder. Yeah, absolutely. Alder Scannell for a second time.
Yeah, I take umbrage at saying that this is partisan. I'm playing partisan politics. I don't give a damn who's in office. There's a lot of talk about accountability. Why is the state legislature? I'm not proud of this election at all. There are people who are going to get sick because of this election. That's nothing to be proud about. I don't get it. This election was insane. This election was completely unnecessary, in-person voting. And the people, I don't give a damn what party they're on. The people who did that should be held responsible. In fact, our citizens should be doing all we can to urge those people to behave responsibly. I don't care what party they are. It's unconscionable when you know in a pandemic that people out congregating like that, somebody's going to get sick. That's going to get passed on. Some people are going to die. That's unconscionable. I'm not proud of any part of this, whether it goes slowly or better, whatever. Certainly we need to try and do that. But first and foremost, let's try and protect the health of our workers and our fellow citizens, and urge whoever is in power that is making these decisions, that they make responsible decisions where we can have a safe and fair election through the mail. That just seems practical, nonpartisan, because I'm not telling anybody how to vote. That's just practical, safe, responsible action, as far as I can tell. If I'm wrong there, show me where I'm wrong.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Steuer.
Thank you, Chair. Or not Chair, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. And in my last comment, I forgot to mention all the great work that the clerk's office did and all the different people. This is that helped here, and that'll all come out hopefully in the report. I did a bunch of my own research too, and talking to not only the mayor but also to Chris Teske, and Alder Galvin as things I had found out from Chris was that each ballot takes about 5 minutes to process, with a minimum of 6 touches by a clerk That comes to a total of almost 1,200 man hours for the 14,376 absentee ballots that were handled. Math, it's daunting. So you got that. I was going to say, how much does each absentee ballot cost in terms of material and postage? Who pays for it? What budgets are we dealing with? We have to look at that. Mail-in ballots, a minimum of 32 clicks it takes in order to process the application. That takes time. With all these man hours that these other departments, inspection, parks, other city personnel, fire department, all people pitched in on this 1,200 hours. And I want to see an accountability as far as breakdown of what the other offices did in terms of time. Clerks worked nights and weekends. I would like to see a breakdown of things on this. I want to compare the absentee ballots from this election to the last 2016 and see where the difference was and do some calculations. You know, we can talk about all the anger and all the things that have been going on with social media and that. And I've read a lot. I've got probably 30 phone calls in the last 2 days. We've all dealt with it. This is very painful for all of us. You know, I wish I could have gone out to the polling place like Alder Weary did, but I could because I'm a little bit older and I had a health issue that I'm not allowed to do that. So I'm stuck, and that makes it even worse because I really wanted to help. I think a lot of us want to help. So let's take that into account. And like Alder Burnett said, I definitely want to see this report come out, and we need to draw together as a council. We need to draw together as Americans and do the right thing. The citizens look to us, and we need to be the best examples we can be as we look for the accountability and responsibility here. Thank you. That is all.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Dorf, I think, for a second time as well.
Yes, just briefly, this thought kind of occurred to me. I've lived in Green Bay now 29 years, and I'm a voter. I vote. I go to all the elections. And I really do want to give a vote of confidence to our clerk, Chris Teskey, and her office for all of the past elections. Just to change the quote a little bit, the best predictor of future performance is past performance. And past performance for elections until this one, in these extraordinary, strange emergency circumstances, her past performance has been excellent. And I wanted to make sure that she knows that I appreciate her. I appreciate the work that they've done, not only for this election, but for all the elections that I've gone to and voted in Green Bay. And I believe firmly that if you look at past performance, we are not going to have a problem with a future election. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Weary for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do look forward to your report as well. However, I strongly reiterate the importance of an independent review of what happened. For full transparency, the Fox does not get to give a report on his visit to the hen house. This needs to be independent. Thank you.
Alder Corpus Dax.
I, same as all the other elders, want to thank everyone, poll workers, volunteers, everyone was able to help make this election possible. And I thank you as well, Mr. Mayor, for taking responsibility for how the election went down. I'm in the same situation as all the other elders in receiving calls, texts, emails from constituents who are angry with how things went down. I had as well, I let them know that I'm in the same situation as they were, because absentee ballot over 2 weeks ago, I never received it. So as of Tuesday, I had to make that same decision. Do I cast my vote or don't I? I mean, it was a no-win situation. I mean, I didn't want to go out, but I had to. I was able to, and I don't take that for granted. The election should have never happened the way it did. Our citizens absolutely deserve better than this. I look forward to the report along with all the other elders, because I think our citizens deserve answers as to what transpired, when it transpired. What I think most important is that we as a council come up with a plan moving forward to prevent this from ever happening again. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, is prevent this from happening again. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. We do have a motion placed on file.
Mayor, can you hear me? Can you hear me? This is Alder.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
You know what? When you pursued the lawsuits, 2 different lawsuits, the city council was never really, even tapped into as far as that you were moving forward with a lawsuit. I think that, there's a breakdown in communication between your office and the Alders. If you're going to move forward with lawsuits, I think the city council should be able to weigh in on this. To me, it's not a good way to do business if you just, leave us in the dark. And, I think that's, some of the reason that, I'd have been in favor of, getting the guard involved and getting the, we didn't have any communication as far as, really how the things were going forward. It was in other words, very quick movement and no communication. If you want to have good results, you got to have communication. And I think there was a major breakdown of the communication between yourself, maybe your staff and the Alders for sure. Just for example, we know in the one polling location, we should have took some advice, from the county as well. And I'd have been in support, and, we should have had that all on the table, with a discussion. And I feel that, that was some of the breakdown was, not a good communication skills being passed on to the Alders. And we could have weighed in and maybe we could have changed the direction of how things went before that happened and before the planning got in effect. So I'd just like you to, keep that in mind. A lot of the people I talked to that are in my district, they weren't happy with what went down. And I do thank the people that worked there. I saw Mr. Buck there. He works in the planning. I think he's in planning, and I saw him at the West High School. And the people that were handicapped people, they should have been allowed to go in right away, not have to wait in their cars for 3 hours. So I hope we address that issue as well. And I think the bank would have been available to help out with the absentee review. So keep those things in mind as we move forward. I think the biggest thing is more communication with the Alders and the mayor's office as well, in order to make good decisions. So keep that in mind, and thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Weir, you've spoken twice already.
Oh, no, my apologies. You can remove that.
Okay, for a second time.
I just wanted to say that I had, because of my age and my conditions that I have, I could not go to the polls at all. So I realized early, and I contacted Chris Teskey in her office, and they were very helpful. And I did get my absentee ballot. It took us over 2 weeks to get it. We did get it in time, and I'm grateful for that because there's no way we could have gone to the polls. And I did feel bad that so many people, when I saw on the news the lines, I felt really bad that all these people had to go. And yes, we are probably going to have people getting sick, and this was terrible. And this is something that I'm glad I heard your explanation, and I think we find out more on this, that there's things that we can do to make sure that in the fall, if this comes up again, this type of situation, learn our lessons, and we can plan more than enough ahead that we can have a decent election, that people feel safe to come out and get their vote in. Thank you.
We do have a motion to receive and place on file. It's been seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. It has been received and placed on file. On to item 3, consideration with possible action on amending GBMC 27.101 to include the Wisconsin statute section 252.25 pertaining to violations of law relating to health. Go ahead, Alder.
I was just going to say move to approve because I read it over, but go ahead if you want to do some explanation.
Yeah, well, I think we'll go to some combination of Chief Smith and Commander Warwick to just lay things out for council here.
Chief, you can go first.
Just 1 second, Chief.
He's muted yet.
You're still muted here, Chief.
There we go. Hey, one more time on what you're looking for, sir.
So we're just on item 3 here. This is pertaining to violations of law relating to for municipal enforcement of violations of the governor's order, the safer at home or stay at home order.
Right. We had a couple of things that we wanted to point out. Number one was prior to the governor's order, we did have, and we cited some individuals at that bar that was open and got cooperation after that. Since the order's been open, we did have one bar that had opened up and had a number of patrons inside. We issued a total of 4 citations for that. And based on those 4 citations, they closed down. And then we had an incident at a park the other day that you might have seen on social media. That was a group of young men that were harassing a woman who was walking by. She called us because of the harassment, asked that the police talk to the young men and say, hey, they shouldn't be talking to women like that. Our officers responded, found the kids playing in a park, playing basketball in the park, which was against the governor's order. And based on that, they asked for voluntary compliance, didn't get it, gave a direct and lawful order to try and get the youngsters to comply and leave the park and stop playing basketball. They generally refused, and one of them was real adamant about refusing. So the officers began escorting this youngster out of the park. He became resistive. They put handcuffs on him, ended up putting him in a police car, took him to his house. He was not cited, but he was given a warning, and his mother was explained to what the rules of the governor's order. Other than that, we've been getting a lot of voluntary compliance. If we find someone that's in violation, we'll give them a direction, and they're very compliant. Any questions we have, we refer back to the city attorney's office and the office of the governor and try and get a little bit of clarification. But so far, it's going pretty well. I'm missing something, Kevin?
Thanks, Chief. Better work.
Yeah, the purpose of this proposed ordinance is the chief's right. We fielded a lot of complaints. We've had 2 bars where we had to refer charges, citations, meaning charges to the Brown County District Attorney's Office. This ordinance, proposed ordinance, just makes the city adopt ordinance so that if officers go to future businesses, that they have the ability to write a municipal citation and run it through municipal versus run it through the Brown County District Attorney's Office. This will help the officers' time. It'll increase the officers' efficiency. It'll save time in the District Attorney's Office. And the citation is more applicable through community court, and that's what this ordinance is for.
Right, and the district attorney was consulted with this addition to our municipal code as well, correct, Commander?
Correct. I was in contact with District Attorney Lassay, and he fully supports this. He even provided, in addition to support, he also provided that Fond du Lac is doing exactly what we are doing or has done. So he said that, based on his caseload, it would be more appropriate to run these charges through municipal court versus the District Attorney's Office.
Very good. Thanks for the synopsis there, Chief and Commander. I'm just trying to pull up the speakers list here. Just give me a second.
Second. I'll second it.
And we don't have no speakers. Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just by way of understanding, because as I'm looking at this, there's obviously no text that explains what this is. I mean, and again, I just want to understand, is this already, when we're looking at this list of all these things that are contained within this document, I presume then that these are lists of all state laws that we're just adopting into our ordinances, and that's what allows us to handle these cases through municipal court as opposed to the district attorney?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so in order for us to be able to actually cite under our ordinances, we have to have those ones actually pulled into our ordinances. Otherwise, they are strictly criminal. These are making them civil violations as well.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the explanation.
Thanks, Alder. Any other questions? All right, we had a motion to adopt by Alder Dorf.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Scannell. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. You guys have it. On to item 4, consideration with possible action on amending GBMC 33.01, parent 9, parent D,
Motion to
relating to
approve.
Class B liquor licenses to include the sale of intoxicating liquor in the original package or container for consumption off premises. Motion made by Alder Scannell,
Second. Fire.
seconded by Alder Stoyer. Discussion here, any questions? Law, either Vanessa or Attorney Chavez rather, or Attorney Bunkert, just to explain what's going on here.
Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Attorney Joanne Bungert. So this ordinance amendment is basically enacted under state statute. Under Chapter 125, the city can enact an ordinance that allows the sale of intoxicating liquor in the original container for off-premise consumption. So this ordinance would allow Class B establishments, essentially bars and restaurants, to be able to sell their liquor for carry-out orders in the original packaging.
Great. And then just to add to what Attorney Bungert has said there, if this were something that we were planning to adopt indefinitely, I think obviously a robust policy discussion would be in order. We should certainly have a discussion tonight, not suggesting otherwise. But the reason that this is before you is obviously because of the governor's order that has essentially shut down bars and restaurants for regular business. This gives taverns in the community an opportunity to sell liquor in its original package. And it's not a big moneymaker for these folks given the margin, but it does offer them an opportunity to continue to bring some revenue in the door. Alder Galvin. I think you're still muted here, Alder.
My question is for Attorney Bunker. And I don't know if it's changed, but back when I was in uniform, if someone had a 6-pack and a can was missing, or a 12-pack and a can was missing, it was considered an open intoxicant. So I'm just wondering, does this ordinance cover the single sale of, single bottles, single cans?
So this applies to only intoxicating liquor. So this would be bottles of distilled spirits like vodka, whiskey. Chapter 125 already allows for the sale of fermented malt beverages for off-premise consumption. And that provision under state statute doesn't have the original packaging requirement, so that essentially allows fermented malt beverages, things like beer, and malt beverages like wine coolers and things like that. That can be sold in the bottle that it comes in, or it can be sold in like a growler, for example.
Okay.
But this particular provision applies to just intoxicating liquor.
Okay.
That requires it to be in the original sealed container. So this can't be like a mixed beverage that's sold in a to-go cup. It would have to be in the original sealed bottle.
All right. All right. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Alder. Not seeing any further discussion here. Alder Lefebvre.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would vote for this, as this is unusual circumstances, and that's the only reason that I would give a yes vote to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Seeing no other speakers here, we have a motion and a second. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So obviously we've had the discussion on these two items, but Attorney Chavez, correct me if I'm wrong, under agenda item H, the two ordinances for first and final reading, we do need 2/3 votes.
That is correct. So the council can suspend the rules to take them together, but to actually adopt them, it does require a 2/3 vote for both of them tonight, to adopt them tonight.
Right.
Suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf to suspend the rules and take these ordinances up with one roll call vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So we will use the board because it does necessitate that 2/3 vote on both items 1 and 2 here.
And then, Mayor, we're going to just give us a few minutes to display that vote.
Sounds good.
Oh, sorry. We need a motion and a second on the
Oh.
approval of.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to approve. Second, Stoyer.
Motion by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Scannell. Did I say Scannell twice? Scannell and Stoyer.
Second, Stoyer.
That motion passes 12-0.
Very good. Thank you, Clerk. On to referral of petitions and communications. Excuse me. Let's see. So, I'm having a little trouble bringing up the list here. Alder Scannell, you mentioned you had a communication, I believe.
Yeah, resolution for the city adopt, urging our state legislature to establish and allow all mail-in ballot for the next elections. That would go to protection and policy, I guess.
All right, very good. Thanks, Larry. Did you also have a communication?
I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Protection policy and/or committee to hold, whatever is appropriate. Request the Wisconsin Elections Commission investigate the administration of the election and conduct of officials for April 7th, 2020, and reports findings to the Green Bay Common Council.
Thank you, Alder. Not seeing this list, so anybody else, just chime in if you have.
Mayor, I have one.
Alder Story first, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. This one, I believe, is to INS. It's to have the city of Green Bay look at docking facilities at the Green Bay Metro boat launch and see about alternatives to the existing docks, including portable docking systems, such as those Brown County facilities in Alloway and De Pere. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Dorf.
Thank you. This would be to the appropriate committee, it possibly personnel. So to form an ad hoc elections committee for the duration of the COVID-19 national crisis. The purpose of said committee under the direction of the Green Bay City Clerk would be to proactively assist the clerk to plan for the November 2020 election and have the primary goal of obtaining positive suggestions and action items to improve the process of holding elections that occur during the COVID-19 outbreak. This committee could be composed of city staff to include the city clerk, the deputy city clerk, a city attorney, alders, interested citizens from Green Bay, and should be approved by city council. This committee could review what happened during the in-person voting in Green Bay on April 7th, 2020, as well as what areas of planning for a future election might and could include such items as 1, the communications to the public regarding early voting and absentee ballots. 2, the mechanics and logistics of the April 7th election and what can be done now to ensure a more successful and efficient election August and November. And 3, if needed, the committee should make a recommendation to the mayor and city council and determine if recommendations or requests should be made to the Wisconsin Elections Commission in advance of the August-November 2020 election. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any other communications?
Mayor? I would say that would either go to CNP or the mayor's office.
Then I'd like it to go to the mayor's office then.
Okay, sure, why not?
But you can decide.
I have
You can decide.
Well, I mean, we're certainly happy to have involvement with that discussion. But if we want to go to a committee to entertain action there.
Well, I thought personnel because we're pulling in city staff but it can go to PNP. That's fine.
Okay. We will do that. Additional communications.
Alder LaFave?
Go ahead.
I have two. The first one, I'm not sure where to go. I'll read it. As Zoom has multiple security issues, the city of Green Bay should look into Cisco WebEx, which Brown County is using.
Okay.
I'm not sure which community that should go to.
Attorney Chavez?
I didn't gather what the software was for. I just heard called WebEx and the county's using it.
For our meeting. For our council and committee meetings to use a different platform.
I was headed to finance then.
Finance?
I think that I just want to mention one thing. I think Mike, our IT person, would be very instrumental in handling that as well. He should be in on the discussion.
Yeah, that makes sense, Alder, but you don't have the floor here, but good point.
Just making a suggestion.
Yep, very well.
Okay.
Alder LaFave, you got a second communication?
Yes. This is a resolution. The city of Green Bay asked the Wisconsin Election Commission investigate myvote.gov RE request for absentee ballots failures. Citizens filled out the request only after weeks of not receiving their ballot. They went back to check their status only to find out the request was not filled.
Thank you, Alder.
Would that go to INS or Protection and Policy? Protection and Policy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
Thank you. That's it.
All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to refer.
Motion to refer.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorff. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Nay. And just before we get to adjournment here, ask for a little latitude for an announcement. I did get a message from Chief Smith during the meeting, some very unfortunate news that we have experienced our first COVID-19 related death here in Brown County. So obviously we knew this crisis was real. It's even more real now. So I would just ask you to keep the gentleman who passed away, a 58-year-old male, and his family in your thoughts and prayers tonight. On to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Alder LaFave.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder LaFave. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thanks, Alder.